Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about the Ngondro practice, which are the four preliminary practices, the four inner preliminary practices to prepare ourselves for Ngondro practice, or excuse me, for Mahamudra practice, for enlightenment practice. So the four outer preliminaries are the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma: precious human life, permanence, karma, cause and effect, and the suffering of samsara. So those things we've talked about quite a lot. If we need to go back to them, we should, to refresh our memories. We're not going to do that tonight. But now we're going to be talking about the four inner preliminaries, which are where we really align ourselves, where we become Sangha members, true Sangha members, that we become part of the lineage. And of course, our lineage that we are involved in here is the Drikung Kagyu lineage. This is the lineage of the yogis. In the old days, the masters would be going up into the caves and the hermitages for years on end. Some may be 5 years, some may be 10 years, some may be even 25 years, to be able to purify themselves, to purify their afflictions, their emotions, and so on, and to help concentrate their one-pointed mindfulness and so on. So for us now, where we are in terms of the evolution of life and so on, our masters have designed these Ngondro practices for us to be able to help simulate some of that focus, some of that hardship that the past masters would have endured by going off into these lonely places to do their practices. Now, this is designed for us to have a period of time for where we can focus in some more maybe limited hardship, but nevertheless, it is a difficulty in which we have to commit to take to help us to purify, to understand the meaning of all of this, and so on. So the Ngondro practices are were being done by, normally would be done in a monastic setting by those who would have been in the monastery for some period of years and now have reached a period of their lives, and usually around 20 years old, 21 years old, 22, maybe 19, but in those early adult years, where now they are preparing themselves to really go into Mahamudra meditation, deep meditation, and they would go into a 3-year retreat where all their needs are being taken care of, their food is being provided to them. All that they have need to do is to do practice all day and all night. As a matter of fact, they don't sleep in a way that we normally sleep. They don't lay down. They have their boxes that they sit in. Their seats that are about the size of a meditation mat, where you're sitting on your cushion, and they stay seated in this position all day, 24/7 for 3 years. And many of them, I've seen documentaries about where they would tie strings onto their hair to keep them, that are, and the other end of the string is attached to something on the ceiling or something to keep them, erect, so that they're not falling over and falling asleep and things like that. You can sleep in this position, but you have to learn how to do that. You stay in this position. So these are hardships that these people are committing to be able to do this. And then while in this 3-year retreat, the first part of the retreat, the first year of the 3-year retreat, is dedicated to doing the Ngondro practices. So there's 4 practices. The 4 practices are the refuge prostration parts, that we're taking refuge in the lineage. So we're learning what the lineage is, and we are purifying our body of afflictive emotions, getting over arrogance and other emotions by doing these prostrations. And we have to accumulate 100,000 prostrations. And during the time we're doing this, we're making a recitation of a mantra, of the long refuge mantra that we're going to get to in our talk tonight. That you're reciting that while you're doing full body prostrations, and you accumulate 100,000 of them. And it takes quite a long time. And there's usually 5 or 6 sessions a day, where you do 2 in the morning time, 2 sessions, you take a break, then you have your lunch, then you take 2 more sessions in the afternoon time, and then you take at least 1 more session in the evening time, and sometimes a 6th session before one would go to sleep and so on. So these sessions are done, and during these sessions, each session may be that you accumulate 400 or 500 or 600 prostrations, all at the same time while doing the recitation of the mantra. When you accumulate that, when you finish your 100,000 accumulation, perfect. So in the Drikung Kagyu, you're actually doing 111,111, 111, comma, 111. And the 11,111 is built in, assuming that you're not going to do 100,000 perfectly. If that's all you do is 100,000, they're giving you 11,000 to be able to kind of fudge a little bit, to learn a little bit, so that you finally do 100,000 perfect. So from experience, I know the first 10,000 are the most difficult. It's where you're getting your routine together, you're getting your rhythm together, you're learning the practice and so on, and you're able to flow with it and so on. So it becomes very effortless and natural, as you continue doing the recitations and the prostrations. So the first 10,000 are difficult, but then after that, the next 100,000 go much easier, and it's much. And if we don't do them, then we feel like we're missing something. So as Westerners who are approaching this from a more relaxed, we're not in a 3-year retreat. We're spreading this out over a much longer period of time. So we have to be able to fit this into our schedules, so to speak. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's the first of the 4 Ngondro practices, is the refuge prostrations. We're taking refuge in the lineage. Then the next is the purification, which is the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, the purification. And we recite that 100,000 times perfectly. So we do 111,111 of those. And then there is a practice that we recite that we wind up memorizing to prepare ourselves for that recitation. So we're accumulating that purification to purify our body, our speech, and our mind. So it means that the things that we take on to ourselves, the physicality of our imperfections, of our defilements, the intellectual imperfections, the intellectual defilements, the emotions that we take on, and so on, and the and the purification of knowledge of what we think is true. And we find that, we understand things to the best of our ability, but as we are progressing along, suddenly we find that now we are blasting through what we thought was true, now becomes a falsity. And now we're abiding in a now higher level, where at this lower level, things may be true, but at this level, they're no longer true. So we're going through purification of knowledge, purification of wisdom, both of intellectual wisdom and of our wisdom that we carry in our heart center. So that's the second. And then the third is the Mandala Offering, making the Mandala Offering, which is the accumulation of loving kindness and compassion. We are accumulating loving kindness. We are accumulating compassion. So this is done through the Mandala Offering. So we build a mandala. There's 37 elements to the mandala, and we are building the mandala physically as we do this. We're reciting a mantra that we are saying over and over again. 100,000 perfect accumulations there. And then once we do that, then we move on to the fourth part, which is the Guru Yoga, and recognizing the guru, recognizing the external guru, the guru who is our teachers and so on, but also recognizing the guru that was within ourselves and being able to abide within that guru. And there yet again is another practice that we have 100,000 accumulation. So back in the monastery, we would be doing this over the course of a year or so in the first year of our 3-year retreat. When we finish that, then we would move on to the fivefold path of Mahamudra. So this is very profound. It's very powerful. It, for myself, it's the most significant thing that I've done in my Buddhist career, so to speak. It did more for me to recognize what it is to be Buddha, what it is to have a clear mind, what it is to have a heart of the Buddha, and so on. So more than any other practice that I've done. And this was only in preparation to be able to do the Mahamudra practices. So it's very, very powerful. And everything that we do in the Ngondro has a direct bearing on what we will do in all the other practices that surround all this. So the deity yoga practices, all the different prayers we do and everything, all the Ngondro practices are like a light that shines onto all these other practices and illuminates them to give us new and more powerful meaning as to what all this is. So therefore, who we are, what we are. So anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. If you have anything, speak right up. Don't hesitate. This is a time to be able to understand these things.
Lance, could you just elaborate a little bit on what happens in Guru Yoga?
Guru Yoga is recognizing the 37 Drikon Kagyu lineage holders, and you're reciting their names, and you learn who they are and what they did, and you're seeing your teachers as being all these teachers, the embodiment of all these teachers, that within the heart of all beings, we are the reflection, we are the continuum of all these teachers, just like we are the continuum of the Buddha, and so on. So we see all this, we begin to recognize this, and we're grateful for all this, and we're understanding this. So there is a recognition, there is a voicing of this, and the mantra that we recite is saying their names and so on, to be able to prepare us for understanding this. So so it's aligning ourselves, putting ourselves in that lineage of the masters. So the guru, seeing the guru as this continuous lineage, and seeing our part as being the guru. That first we have to be the disciple, and then we become the guru, just as all these other great masters went through this same process.
What are the practices you do in Guru Yoga in that period?
Well, there's a set of about 5 or 6 prayers that are recited, the Sir Kangma prayers, the golden lineage prayers, that you're reciting all the names of all the lineage holders, and then it's developing an awareness of who they are, a remembrance of who they are and what it is that you're doing. So it takes about an hour just to get to the point of starting to do what is the actual recitation of the mantra of the Guru Yoga. That the first hour of your session is spent doing this preparation to get there. And in each one of these preparations, you're going and you're doing the refuge prostrations. You're going and you're doing the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva. You're going and you're doing the Mandala Offering, and then you come to the Guru Yoga. So you do that as you're progressing along. First, we start with the refuge. Then we move on to the Vajrasattva. So before we do the Vajrasattva, we do the refuge again. Then we go on to the Mandala Offering. Then we do the first two before you get to the Mandala Offering. So you're constantly building on what you've done. So I know it's not a lot of detail, but we don't have a lot of time for detail. We'll get there soon enough. And if you want the books, there are more sections to this that we have. This is just the first section. So you can read ahead if you want to do that. There is a book that is called the Diamond Rosary. And there's no copies left that I'm aware of. You may find people, you may put out notices to people and find out where people have these books in their libraries and are not using them, or they've used them and they don't need them anymore and would be willing to share them. But here is the instructions that was given by Kenshin Rinpoche, Kenshin Kunchok Gyaltsen Rinpoche. So all the details of the practices and the prayers and so on is in this book called the Diamond Rosary. So you might want to look for this. This is a very, very good book. To me, it's indispensable. It was very, very helpful in being able to continue my practice. So I read this many times to get myself, back on track. When I would begin to wander, to get myself back on track. So for myself, I didn't start doing any of this practice, the Ngondro practice, till I was 59 years old. So I'm 74 now. It took me 12 years to finish it. But as I said before, it was the most important thing that I've done and was very powerful. So it became a labor of love. So don't let your age be an impediment. There are ways to work around whatever physical ailments we may have and so on to be able to do this. But once you make the commitment to do this, it begins to take on a life of its own, and you want to become a Buddhist practitioner. It's your aspiration. The aspiration now becomes action. And then as we're doing it, we receive the blessings of the Lamas, of the Buddhas and so on that come to us through these practices. Okay, so the first part of this is to do our opening prayers. We have to set our motivation. So this is where memorizing these things really comes into play. And by doing this, it really gives you the incentive to memorize, because you can move through it a little more quickly. And I've always said, do it slowly so you can understand the meaning. But once you commit this to memory, and once you get that meaning, now you can maintain that remembrance of the meaning while you're doing this faster. For instance, not to show off, but just to show you, to do the prayers, we go, Dagla Dangwa J Pedra, no Bar J Begag, Toba Tam Tam Shake and Bay Bar Do, Joe Bar J Bar Tam Shake, Iso J Bay, Manam Kandan, Pay Some Chan, Tam Shay De Wa Dang Dang, Dug Na Jang Na Du La Na, Yang Bar Zo Bay, Zhang Ju Brimpo Shato Paja. So that's the altruistic motivation. And then recite that 3 times. So I just did it in 10, 15 seconds. But what I'm trying to do is to get through, and it doesn't minimize my commitment to this. but I'm able to get myself in that stream of consciousness very, very, very quickly. It takes time to do that, to get up to that point, to get to that speed. But this is what this practice is all about, is being able to do that. So I could recite it in English just as fast. Okay, so we need to do this. So Gary, I'm going to ask you to do the practice, be the Yamze tonight. So please recite the opening prayers.
Well, Tibetan as well, Lance, or just the English?
Do the English once and do the English twice and the Tibetan once tonight.
All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who
You turned your microphone off.
I'm sorry, it was on. I'll start again. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dang war jepe dra, no par jepe gag. Tharpa dang, tham che kien pe bardu. Chopar jepa, tam che ki so jepe. Manam ka dang yam pe sim chen. Tam che dewa dang den. Drugnyal dang drel, nur du lana. Me pa yang dagpar zogpe changchu, rinpoche thobpar ja. Action, Bodhicitta prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deche du sang ma ge ki bardu lu nyag yisum gewa la ko. Ma she bardu lu nyag yisum gewa la ko. Du de ring ne sung te ni ma sang da. Sam ki bardu du lu nyag yisum gewa la ko. Long refuge prayer. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage Llamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage Llamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Drenchen Sewa Dang Yu Par Che Pe. Pelden Lama Dam Panam La Kyab Su Chio. Yidam Kyo Kor Jila Tsog Nam La Kyab Su Chio. Sangje Chom Dende Dam Nam La Kyab Su Chio. Dam Pecho Nam La Kyab Su Chio. Phagpai Chin Jen Du Nam La Kyab Su Chio. Pawo Kyandro Chong Jong Sun Mai So Yeshe Ki Chendang Denpa Nam La Kyab Su Chio. Taking the Bodhisattva vow. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Jang Chub Ning Por Chi Ki Bar Sang Ji Nam La Kiab Su Chi Cho Dang Jang Chub Sim Pa Yi Sog La Yang De Shen Kiab Su Chi Jaitar Nong Ji De Shag Chi Jang Chub Thug Ni Che Pa Dan Jang Chub Sim Pa Pai La Pa La De Dag Rim Shen Ne Pa Tar De Jindro La Fin Dong Du Jang Chub Sim Ni Chi Ji Sing De Jin Du Ni La Pa La Rim Pa Jin Du La Par Ji. Short refuge prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangji Cho Dam Sog Chi Cho Nam La Changchu Bardu Dagni Kyab Su Chi Dagji Jen Sok Ji Pe So Nam Ki Dro Log Pin Cheer Sangji Dru Par Sho. The Four Immeasurables. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kya dan yam pe sem chen. Tam che dewa dang de wei yu dang den park your chi. Dug nyao dang dug nyao ji ju dang draw war jor chi. Dug nyao me pe dewa dang mi draw war jor chi. Ne ring chak dang ni dang draw wei tang yom lei ne bar your chi.
Okay, thank you very much. Done very well. Okay, so everybody's got their text. So we're going to go through this page by page, line by line. So we're not going to get through it all tonight, but we're going to get started on this. And we're going to repeat this, each week until we finish the whole thing, and then we can start doing prostrations together. We will see if we can get to doing a few prostrations tonight. All right, so page number 1 is the introduction. So if everybody turns to that, please. Okay, so we read out loud together. For the benefit of all sentient beings, the most gracious Buddha Shakyamuni spoke the Dharma through the sutras and the tantras. The 5 profound paths of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa are the essence of the Buddhist teachings, which enable one to attain enlightenment even in one lifetime. However, to practice the path of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa, one must be fully convinced of the 4 ways of turning the mind, or the 4 ordinary foundations. The 4 ways of turning the mind are the basis for the successful practice of any of the yanas. Then one practices the 4 extraordinary foundations, or the Vajranyana Ngondro, to purify the negative karma and obscurations of the mind, speech, and body, and to develop virtues. The great 12th century Tibetan saint, Lord Jigden Sumgun, the second Nagarjuna, said, the Ngondro is even more important than the higher practices. One must truly understand and practice the simple yet profound foundational teachings before one begins the higher teachings. So is there any question, any comments about that, any of that? Okay, so we should read that, as often as we need to refresh our commitment as to what it is that we're doing. We should be completely familiar with it. If there's any phrase, any word that you're not familiar with, you should research it. You should ask somebody about it. You should know perfectly well what that all means. This is all very important. This is the time of purification of our body, speech, and mind. These are the practices that do that. Okay, so next, page 2, 3, 4. These are the opening prayers which we just recited. So we don't need to do this again. So
Lance, how about number 4?
Page number 4?
Yes.
Page number 4. Yes, there is a little prelude to this. This is the long refuge prayer. So yes, thank you for pointing that out. So everybody's on page number 4. We'll recite this. It says, all sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, and mind, qualities and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teachings, and Lord of the Sanghas. And then page 5, then we go on to the long refuge prayer. So this first page 4 is like an introduction to that, saying, who is the Lama? What does the Lama mean? So in page 5, it says, we take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Llamas. So who are they? What do they represent? They have, within their heart center, they have Vajradhara. They are aware of Vajradhara. They are the emanation of Vajradhara. We have Vajradhara within us also, although we may not recognize it. So we are coming to do that. So you know that in Dharma Surya, where we have the portraits of the lineage masters, the first one is Vajradhara. Vajradhara is the indestructible wisdom holder. That's what it means. That's what Vajradhara means. Indestructible is Vajra, the indestructible wisdom, the manifest wisdom, indestructible Vajra. And Dhara means the holder of this wisdom. This indestructible wisdom is the holder of this. So Vajradhara is unborn, non-conceptual. So it is the essence of all the Buddhas, all the Bodhisattvas, all the Lamas, all the teachers. So it says, all sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in this glorious, kind Lama Vajradhara that is within us all. Take refuge in that we have this within ourselves. The embodiment of the body, speech, and mind qualities and activities of the Buddha. So these 5 things, the body, speech, and mind qualities and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times. I hope everybody knows what those mean. If you don't, ask right now.
Lance, I've got the picture from the shrine room up on my screen.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, so that's a picture of Vajradhara.
See, it's here in the shrine room.
Okay. And then it says in the next line, it says, source of the 84,000 categories of the teachings and Lord of the Sanghas. So Vajradhara is at the heart center of Buddha Shakyamuni. And we're told, from the very beginning, our very first teaching in Buddhism 101 or in any other class that we take, is that the Buddha taught on 84,000 emotions, to overcome 84,000 emotions. And that this all got subsumed down to, or got broken down to the five poisons. That the 5 poisons and all their myriad ways of working together come to be the 84,000 emotions, the afflictive category. So here it says, source of the 84,000 categories of the teachings that Buddha Shakyamuni gave to us, and Lord of the Sanghas. So this is the significance of Vajradhara. So when we think of this prayer, this long refuge prayer, it's taking refuge in Vajradhara, the lineage lamas, and our root lama. So the root lama is the lama, the teacher, who introduces you to the true nature of your mind. The one that gives you allows you to see the clarity on your own. The Lama is not doing it for you, but is leading you to that recognition, for you to recognize that yourself. This is your root Lama. Now you can have many root Lamas, because like I said, there are levels, and we reach a plateau, and there all these truths are in this plateau. But then we break through that plateau. Now we're at another level. And now all those things that we thought were true, now we see as relative. And now we're at this other level and so on. So we can have different root lamas who can take us from one level to another and so on. So don't feel as though that you have to have one and you're going to stay with that one. You have one and you have many, that they all have Vajradhara within them. And each of these root lamas have their abilities to be able to teach and to be able to transmit these truths to us and the way that we relate to them and so on. So I hope that explains the root lama. And then the lineage lamas are all the lamas that have come from Lord Jigten Sumgun onward to where we are now with His Holiness Chetseng Rinpoche and Chunseng Rinpoche, all those lineage lamas. But we can also say that's the lineage of the Drikung Kagyu. But we can also say that there is a lineage of the Kagyu, which starts with Vajradhara, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, etc. And then we can say that there is a lineage of Shakyamuni Buddha, where we go Shakyamuni Buddha, we go Nagarjuna, we go Shariputra, and we go through the different lineages. We did a little bit of the history of some of those great masters and so on of last month and so on. So we talked a little bit like that. So there is that lineage, the lineage of the Buddha. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So we should recite this like that and commit this to memory. So thank you for pointing that out to me. I'd forgotten that. Anything else? Okay. So then we get to page 11. So here is the 7-limb prayer. And we recite this together. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, requesting, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Now, this should sound familiar to you because this is the last stanza of the 7-limb prayer. So the 7-limb prayer is the recognition, the realization of that all the different practices, all the different prayers that we do is hung on the frame of the 7-limb prayer. So at this point here, you can recite the whole 7-limb prayer if you wish to, no problem. And it's a good idea until you get it memorized. But if you're limited with time, you can recite here this last stanza, which is a summation of the 7 limbs. So it's good to do it in English. It's good to do it in the Tibetan. The Tibetan is based on the Sanskrit. The Sanskrit is the language of the Buddha that the Buddha taught in and is charged with sacred meaning, each of these syllables and so on. So as we are reciting these, we are reciting in the same charged atmosphere in our body, speech, and mind that all these masters have taught in and have received these teachings in, and so on, just as the Buddha. So it's very powerful. And as I've used the metaphor before, it's like a key going into a lock that opens up, and our heart is like that lock. And within that is a treasure chest of all this wisdom and skillful means and joy and equanimity, this bodhicitta. So it's like opening that up. So doing the Tibetan is very important. Okay. So then we would recite it in English. We would recite it in Tibetan. Chag sa wadang cho ching sa padang. Jesu yi rang kol sing so wa yi. Ge wa jung ze da gi ji sag pa. Tam je zog pe shang shub chir no. So if you chant it just like that, it's fine. If you do it, have a melody with it, that's fine too. Sometimes the melodies are very helpful, to be able to memorize the sequence of the Tibetan words. Okay, so now we come to page 12. And page 12, so now we recite the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. So if you remember in the introduction, it made reference to that. So we're invoking the 4 thoughts to the Dharma with each one of our practices of doing Ngondro. So here we recite the 4 ways of turning the mind. Oh, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When we obtain this body, which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain the ultimate liberation, joyous result. So contemplate the meaning of this. Make sure that we understand every single word, every single phrase, what it means, what the inner meaning is. We talked about this many times, and if you don't remember, if you don't recall, we can talk about it. Just say that we need to refresh our memories, and I'll be more than happy to spend time talking about it. You may have notes on this. There are past teachings that we've done about this, may be still available online. So there's many ways to be able to get information about this. The Diamond Rosary, the book that I pointed out to you before, goes into detail of all these things. So this is all good stuff. So then page 13 now is the next. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty for all who are born. Death can descend anytime like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of Dharma. So this is impermanence. The first one I didn't point out is precious human life. The second one is impermanence. Now, with all these other things that we've been talking about, are prayers. And the Tibetan is important. With these four thoughts, the Tibetan is not stressed. If you want to spend time learning it and memorizing it, reciting it, is perfectly fine. But I did not. This was one place where I had to save some time for the rest of the practice. So when in these instructional things that are not prayers, they're not refuges or refuge prayers, it's not completely necessary to do these in the Tibetan. So that's a choice that you make on your own. Usually with the groups, with the lamas, it's not usually recited into the Tibetan. Page 14 now is number 3. It says, the fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding of all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the Dharma by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. So this is karma, cause, and effect. So again, you should be familiar with this. If you're not, and need a refresher, we can do that. But we would recite this and then contemplate, maybe for just a moment. Maybe it becomes your whole meditation. Maybe you just sit there for the next hour and just contemplating this, that you're coming into your session with an emotion, with something, and this particular part just resonates with that and helps you to overcome that. So you just allow it to manifest, just allow it to happen. However these things come up, the wisdom comes up, you just go with it. You don't say, oh, I got to get through this, I got to get through this. That everything becomes, it's organic, everything just flows. It's a stream of consciousness. And if there's a place that we kind of have to stay with, we should stay with that. We'll get to the 100,000, we'll get done, believe me. So don't say, oh, I got to do my 100,000 today. So the number 15, page 15 is number 4. It says, in the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. So this is the suffering of samsara, understanding the suffering of samsara. So these are the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. Why it is that we keep coming back to the Dharma. You know, I always say it's the 4 thoughts that the 4 thoughts that lead to the Dharma and keep us on the Dharma, because we don't just say them 1 or 2 times or 3 times. We keep saying them over and over, and it keeps us stable in the Dharma.
Just one thought. It's interesting, you know, even the experiences of being high spiritually, you know, peak experiences, if you hang on to them, you're not practicing the Dharma at that point. The idea is to practice the Dharma, you know, always, not just when you're suffering.
Right. Yeah. But when we are suffering and we use the Dharma and the Dharma delivers us from our suffering, then we really see how powerful the Dharma is. It's easy when we're feeling good, when everything's clear, we have peace of mind and everything we're doing it is really good. But it's not until we're challenged that we really see the power of it.
And when things are going well, like you're saying, if we're holding on to those experiences, if we're kind of coasting, those things will pass. There's no absolute happiness in those things. That's why we practice the Dharma in good and bad times. We don't when we're feeling good, we don't say, okay, I can coast.
Correct. That's right. That's right. And we will have tendencies to do that from time to time, as beginners. You say, oh, I don't need to practice today. I really had a good session yesterday. I can, but then there's also times when because of circumstances, we can't practice, life emergencies come up, things happen that we got to pay attention to, a practical priority comes up, and we got to do that. But then as soon as we can, we get back to it. And we find that when we get back to it, we go through all these things again, and then we see, oh, you know what? I haven't really thought about that particular aspect before. I haven't remembered that. Oh, I'm glad I saw that again. So it really strengthens us. So although we're not in a 3-year retreat, the fact that we're Westerners and we're doing this in our own, our own way, we can make use of getting back from interruptions, getting back to things, because those can be teachers for us too. It doesn't have to be this concentrated, 3-year retreat. There is benefit there, but we can have benefit also by having to recommit over and over and over again. Becomes part of the practice as well. Okay, so now we come to page 16. So page 16 is the Sanskrit alphabet. So now the Buddha was teaching in Sanskrit. This was the language of, it was the teaching language. It may not have been the conversational language. I'm not much of a scholar to know that, but I've been told that it was their teaching language, but there was a vernacular that, there was something else. It maybe had Sanskrit in there, but nevertheless, it was the Sanskrit was the teaching. So understanding the Sanskrit alphabet is very important, and recognizing that each one of these Sanskrit syllables, these consonants and these vowels, which we're going to recite, is actually the name of a Dakini and yoginis, of great spiritual beings. So by getting to know these is getting to recognize the connection with the Dakinis and the yoginis. So this is the first way in which we're doing this. This is the first technique in being able to make that association. So many things that we've experienced in our Buddhism that we've learned in Buddhism 101, we're learning these elements and everything. And then as we progress along, we say, oh, wow, I didn't realize the way they're connected. And we say, wow, isn't that far out how they're connected? Now we're seeing another way in which they're connected that maybe we haven't seen before. So it's very important to do these things. So this we recite. So it takes a little practice. It takes a lot of practice. So we recite this. Om, a, e, u, ri, li, e, o, ang, a, kaka, gaga, na, sa, za, na, ta, da, na, ta, da, na, papa, baba, ma, yawalawa, sa, ha, sa, ka, saha, kriya, so, ha. So we recite this now. Om, a, e, u, ri, li, e, o, ang, a, kaka, gaga, na, sa, za, na, ta, da, na, ta, da, na. So here we're repeating that phrase twice. The first one, ta, da, na, our tongue is on the roof of our mouth right behind our front teeth. Ta, da, na. The second time we repeat it, our tongue is on the roof of our mouth back in the back of our palate, ta-ta, da-da, na, ta-ta, da-da, na. And in the proper way to pronounce these syllables and so on, there is the way it's pronounced that way. They have a name for it. I'm sorry, I don't know the name. Again, I'm not that great a scholar or practitioner to be able to know all these things, but that's the reason for it. Ta ta da da na, ta ta da da na, ta ta da da na, pa pa ba ba ma, yawalawa, sa ka, saha, kriya, soha. So whatever way you need to break this down, you know, for me to memorize these things, I had to write them out in different ways. I had to do it in different phonetic ways that I could remember it. But whatever it takes for you to do that, that's what you should do. And this is part of your practice. This is what this is about, is getting one-pointed mindfulness in these practices, so that you recite it. Om ta ta Om a I u ri ri li li e o ang a ka ka ga na na sa za za na da 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 na da 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 na ba 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 ma ya wa la wa sa sa ha ku sa so ha Om a I u ri ri li li e o ang a ka ka ga na za 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 na da 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 na da 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 na ba 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 ma ya wa la wa sa sa ha ku sa so ha. So you can do that all day long. So whatever it takes for you to do that, part of the practice, okay? Part of the discipline. It's part of overcoming our saying it's not important. It's overcoming our being lazy. It's overcoming the ego that's saying, what are you sitting there doing this for? You could be out having a great time. What are you doing this for? You could be out making money. You could be out getting over on people. You could be driving in your new car. You could be doing all kinds of things. Why are you sitting here doing this? But if we commit to doing these things, we find that this is where we make our spiritual progress. So we recite the Sanskrit alphabet, and we recite that 3 times, as it says here. And now we recite the mantra of interdependent origination. So we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the 6 human realms. If you remember back, and we were talking about the wheel of samsara, and I had the 6 segments of the God realm and the demigod realm and the human realm and the animal realm and the hungry ghost realm and the hell realms. And we talked a lot about all of that. But then around the circumference of the wheel are the 12 links of interdependent origination. And so this is what this goes to that. And we talked a little bit about that. We talked about the 12 links. We talked about the skandhas and so on. We talked about the progression of what it is to be a human being, to be born, and the different 12 links that we go through until we die, and then we're born back again, and we start over and over and over again. So here, this is the mantra of interdependent origination. So if we go to page 17, so if we look at page 16 and page 17 at the same time, here in front of us. So here we can see the Tibetan Sanskrit on page 16, where this prayer, this mantra is written out. And the mantra is Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava Hetu Takan Tadagato Hewa Tatata Takansa Yonarada Ebomwadi Mahashurmani Soha. Now, you know, I fracture the language like crazy. And I'm sure that there are those among you right now who could recite this beautifully in with a very beautiful melody and accent. But so the important thing is knowing the meaning of it, along with reciting these syllables. So the meaning is on page 17. So you see it says, all phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. The cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniye, so be it.
Who's that?
What's that?
Who's that?
Give me a second.
Okay.
So the meaning of this, of course, is very important. So all phenomena arises from causes. So we know that all this phenomenal nature, all this relative nature, the wheel of samsara, all comes from karma, comes from the causes of the precipitates the cause, the karma, that we activate that karma, and then the results is this wheel that we are on. So all this is there, and all these causes have been taught by the Tathagata. So the Tathagata is the Sanskrit word that represents the thus gone ones, represents the Buddhas. So as we develop our mindfulness of this wisdom within ourselves, this wisdom comes up, and we begin to realize, all this temporary phenomenal nature. We begin to recognize that. And the Buddhas, that's what's this wisdom coming up. The Buddhas are teaching this, and all the prior Buddhas have been teaching this. This is what they represent, this awareness. They are the awakened ones, right? All the Buddhas are the awakened ones. They understand this. The cessation of being able to cut through these causes that manifest as actions that create these results. The cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic. And this is Shakyamuni. This is the Buddha. This is Siddhartha Gautama. And this is his gift. All the other Buddhas, they talk about this wisdom, but they didn't spend time on earth and teaching how it is that we cut through this, the Four Noble Truths. It was Buddha Shakyamuni that brought this gift to us. This is why we pay such homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, because he gave us this gift. He is the great ascetic.
That's what
Shramani, yes?
I thought you were just about to say it. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. The Shramaniye means the great ascetic. The Shramaniye means the great ascetic. So I put this in there to give us that association. So it's not just something that flies in our mind and goes out. We don't remember what it means as we were reciting it. So the great ascetic, the Shramaniye. So it's really sealed in the way we recite this mantra. And so be it is soha. So be it, or may it be accomplished. So be it. So we recite this. Om ye dharma hetu pabhava hetu tekan tadagato heo watatata tekansa yonarada ewamari ma shamaniye soha. Om ye dharma hetu pabhava hetu tekan tadagato heo watatata tekansa yonarada ewamari ma shamaniye soha. All phenomena arises from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. Their cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniye soha. It's burned in my memory. So so you memorize this whole thing. The first 10,000 times are the most difficult. But by 10,000 times, you will have memorized this whole thing. And not just memorizing, saying by rote, but by meaning. You will be able to know what it all means. Would anybody like to recite this in the Sanskrit beautifully? Amanda, would you like to do that? Would you like to take a crack at that?
Oh, Lance, that's so nice. I'm not familiar with the pronunciation. I was going to ask you if you would recite it slowly for me so I could hear. Do you mind?
I'll do it the best I can, but
It was beautiful. It's perfect. Thank you.
It is fractured. I can tell you.
It's perfect. It's beautiful. Thank you.
if you hear the Lama say it, it sounds a little bit different. Okay, but it's Om Yadharma, Hetu Prabhava, Hetun Tekan Padagato, Heawadata, Tekansa, Yo Narada, Awamwadi, Maha Shomaniye Soha. So if you break this down in the syllables, you make hash marks, you write it out, and each syllable, here it's in words, but if you break it down, I've got it written down so that we can follow it a little bit easier. Om Yadharma Hetu Pavawa Hetu Tekan Tadagato Heo Watata Tekan So Yonarada Able Madi Ma Shamani Soha. And where it is on page 16, it's not, the phrasing isn't obvious there. You can go online, you can Google this, and you'll hear a bunch of different Tibetans, reciting this, or Buddhists from different traditions. This is said in all the different traditions. It's not necessarily Kagyu or Tibetan, but it's in the Indian traditions and so on. So this is a very well-known prayer among those, more devout people that are practicing, these heavier practices and so on. Okay, any questions about this? Okay. Okay, so now we go to what will be much more familiar is page 18 and 19 is the 100-syllable mantra. So here, I don't think we need to spend any real time on this except to let's recite this one time in the Sanskrit. Now this prayer, this mantra is in Sanskrit. Some of the others are in Tibetan. The one that we just did, the Mantra of Interdependent Origination, that is in Sanskrit as well. And so the 100-syllable mantra is in Sanskrit. So we recite this. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manu Palaya Vajra Sattva Teno Pa Drista Dredo Mebawa Suto Kayo Mebawa Supo Kayo Mebawa Anuraktu Mebawa Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum Ha 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 ho Bhagawan Sara Tada Gata, Bajra Mame Mansa, Bajri Bawa, Maha Samaya Satwa Ha. So, there's melodies for it. You can recite the melodies. You can recite it as a chant. You should be able to recite it in all these different ways. You say it very slowly and deliberately and say it very fast. Om Bajrasawa Samaya Manubalaya Bajrasawa Danoba Jidada Meboa Zudogaya Meboa Zubogaya Meboa Narektu Meboa Zara City Me Prayatsa. Sora Karma Zazume Zizadria Guru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sora Tadagata Bajrabami Mansi Bajrabama Samaya Satwa Ha. Now, one of the imperatives in doing these mantras is that each syllable should be clear and distinct. And if you say them so fast that they can't be recognized, then you're saying them too fast. So you should say them as quickly as you can, or you can say them as quickly as you can, but you shouldn't lose the pronunciation or the enunciation of each syllable. That's important. So I know some people that go, I don't know if I can do it. And I don't know, for me, that's not effective. So everybody's got to make their own judgment about that. You can ask your Lama about that and see what the Lama might have to say. But I have, in the retreats that I've been in, when it's being done properly, it's being done as I suggested, that each syllable is being done, that is enunciated properly, clearly and properly like that. So then the meaning. It's very important to know the meaning. Some people will say, oh, you can't practice this in the English. And I think that it needs to be recited in the Sanskrit, but I also think that the meaning needs to be there. Just reciting it in the Sanskrit doesn't necessarily give you that intellectual meaning. And I think that's important. And it's included in Kenshin's book, The Diamond Rosary. He gives the definition from it in that book. So here it says, Om Vajrasattva Samaya. Help to protect my vow to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the means of all the Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realizations of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus I signify my unity with non-duality. Ah. So anybody have any comments or questions about this? Okay. Okay. So now we come to page 20 and 21. So this really is, these are my favorite pages, because it's through this that we really break through and really understand what the essence of what this is about, what the Ngondro is about to me. And I'm going to tell you, I asked many lamas to translate these mantras that are in Sanskrit. And they all said, oh, they don't have any meaning. And I'm whatever, I said they got meaning. And I'm fortunate enough to have quite a few Sanskrit dictionaries and books and so on. I'm not a scholar, but I am diligent. And I translated these myself. And I've given these translations to some of my teachers. And they didn't say, oh, yes, you did a good job, Lance. They didn't give me one of those. But nevertheless, they kept them with them and they took them with them. So
It didn't say you're going to the lower realms.
if I'm completely wrong, I'm completely wrong. I can't help that. But if there is a little bit of an insight as to the meaning of these, it's here. And I can tell you that from my own experience, it was like removing all the veils, turning on all the lights. It was, it was realization and understanding this. So you take it for what it's worth. I take responsibility for it all. At least my translation. Okay, so these are the increasing mantras. So this is to prepare us, this is increasing the auspiciousness of the practice, is what this means. So in Sanskrit, it starts off Om Sambhara Sambhara Bhimanasara Mahazambo Hum. And we recite this 7 times. And if you've been with me before, you know that there is a monastic little technique in counting 7. So you touch your thumb to your little finger. There's the camera. That's 1. Touch it to your ring finger. That's 2. Touch it to your middle finger. That's 3. Touch it to your index finger. That's 4. Touch it back again to your middle finger. That's 5. Touch it to your ring finger. That's 6. Touch it to your little finger. That's 7. So this is a very easy technique to be able to count 7 until you get the rhythm of it, and you can just do 7 very naturally. But you do 7. Om Sambhara Sambhara Bhimanasara Mahazamba Hong. Om Sambhara Sambhara Bhimanasara Mahazamba Hong. Om Sambhara Sambhara Bhimanasara Mahazamba Hong. Om Sambar Sambar Bimanasar Ma Zambo Hung. 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 So that's 7. If you need to do 21, you're just doing that 3 times, and you got 21. If you want to do 11, you do it, or not 11, you do it 3 times 7 is 2 times 7 is 14 times. So usually you do these things in 7s, 21s, 11s, odd numbers. So the meaning of this, and now we go to page 21, and we see the same mantra written out there, and we see below the mantra is written, arising from a defiled mind, be reborn into great wisdom. So this is the translated meaning of Om Sambar Sambar Bimanasar Ma Zambahung, or rising from a defiled mind, be reborn into great wisdom. Every practice we do, every meditation we do is a death and a rebirth. And when we begin to really recognize that and realize that and see that and live that, then your life really begins to change. Then you really see that enlightenment is possible in this lifetime. We start off as being defiled to whatever degree, but through our practice, we can purify those defilements. And when we get up off the cushion, we may be completely pure. But how quickly is it that we allow the defilements to come back again? It's dependent upon our commitment and our rebirth as great wisdom and how long we can stabilize that. So here, this first mantra is a remembrance to that idea. So now the second mantra is Om Smar Smar Bimanasar, Smar Smar Bimanaskara Mahazamba Hong Pe. So we're reciting that 7 times. And then here the translation of that is, arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. So now we're not just looking at this life, we're looking that we've had many, many, many lives. It's putting this into a greater context. Arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. This flower of wisdom, this lotus flower that is in our heart, And it's said that the chakra, the heart chakra, is a lotus flower. And we know that the lotus comes from defilement. It grows out of defilement. It breaks the surface of the samsara, of the ocean of suffering, and then here comes this beautiful, perfect flower, undefiled, is the symbology of the lotus. So arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. So we've been there many times. We've been born many, many times. We've been born as that flower, and how quickly did we bring on the stains? So Om Sambar Sambar Bimanasar Om Smar Smar Bimanaskar Mahazambo Hong. 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 And then to do that 7 times, and then maybe to do the English 7 times right after that, each one of these. And this is how you memorize these things. When you're being rushed to the hospital, when you're laying in the street somewhere, when you're on your deathbed and you need to have these things, and people are reciting these things to you, but maybe there's nobody around and you got to recite these things to yourself. We're preparing ourselves for our death. How prepared will we be for that? How prepared were we before? Obviously, not too bad, otherwise we wouldn't be here right now. So now the third of the increasing mantras is Om Sambar Sambar Mahazambu Hong Pe. Arising great holy wisdom, purify this life. So this is very powerful. So first, arising from a defiled mind, be reborn into great wisdom. Then arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. Now, arising great holy wisdom, purify this life. And it's our responsibility. Nobody's going to do it for us. It's our responsibility to purify. So we say, Om Sambar Sambar, Bimanasar, Mazambo Hong. 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 So those are the three increasing mantras for the auspiciousness of this practice. If we don't do anything else but these three mantras, my goodness, what a breakthrough. Okay. Any questions or comments? Does anybody need a quick break or anything? Michael, you're rattling your head? A quick one, please. Okay. We'll take a quick break till Michael gets back. In the meantime, if anybody has something you want to talk about.
Are these prayers particular to the Drikung, to the Kagyu, or are they general prayers that came from India?
I don't know for sure. I don't know. You know, they're in these Ngondro practices, so I don't know. It's the only time I've seen them. Actually, well, you know, the sadhanas that we have in, you know, our Dharma Center and in this book and in all the pages that we have that were translated by, most of these were translated by Kenshin Kunchok Gyaltsen Rinpoche. And they all say concise, the concise practice. These are all what would have been books like thick like this. And all these prayers would be in those books. So what Kenshin did to make it more palatable and have mercy for us Westerners was to strip all those things out and get to the essence, the concise meaning of each of those practices, and just have those very thin books that just went to that. But if you were in the monastery, you would be using those big, thick books that had all these prayers in there. So here in these Ngondro practices, this is where we are introduced to those things. So if this is part of the Indian tradition, I can't say, but I will say this, that the the deity yoga practices are pretty much specific to the Vajranyana. And the Vajranyana is pretty specific to the Tibetan Buddhism. So a lot of these things may not have been done in the Mahayana tradition in the same way that they're done in the Vajrayana tradition. So that's my observation. I don't know how true it is.
The Vajrayana is considered to have arisen during the period of the Siddhas in India, and then it just sort of went away in India, didn't it? But it flourished in Tibet.
That's right. That's right. For all the Mahasiddhas, you know, and Padmasambhava was one of them, who was known to be the greatest of that time. And he was invited to Tibet, and then his genius was to morph that with the indigenous Bund tradition, the iconography of the indigenous Bund tradition. And that's why we have the richness of this great Tibetan iconography that went beyond what was done in India up to that point. Did you know that?
Mm.
Yeah, I've got a couple of books here on Bund iconography, and they got all these, you know, all these figures and everything, and they renamed them. They gave them different names, but they had the essence of the same meanings, and that was part of his genius. This was how he morphed what was Indian Buddhism together with Tibetan traditional shaman, shaman tradition, shamanic tradition, you know, without, you know, he brought in some of the rituals like the smoke offerings and so on. He brought those in. That was how he won over them, by incorporating their wisdom together with the Hindu, or not the Hindu, but the Indian. Very practical stuff, you know, and it makes you wonder what's happening now, you know, now that the Tibetans are out of Tibet and in the West. If we come back in 500 years or 1,000 years from now, what is that going to look like? Is there going to be another morphing of the philosophies of the West, and together with the traditions of the East? Why not? As long as the essence is preserved, you know, then why not? And that's the future Buddha. You know, that's the evolution. That is the idea that it grows. It's not stagnant. It grows. All right, well, we're waiting for Amanda to get back. So this refuge time is a time to take refuge in the lineage. One of the things that we do is we have the image of the lineage tree, which we haven't gotten to yet, but Tom has one right behind him, hanging on the wall. And if anybody needs a copy of the image, I can mail it to them. I can do some different sizes, you know, I can mail it to you. But there it is. But this is the Drikung Kagyu lineage tree. And this should be in front of you as you do the practice. So because we are taking refuge in the three jewels, we're taking refuge in the lineage. So this is what this is all about. And we're doing the prostrations to rid ourselves of our arrogance, of our stubbornness, of our pridefulness. We're doing these prostrations as means to break that egoistic tendency to say, I'm great, I'm greater than all this.
Lance, did you say that when the temple was open, whenever that happens again, that you had sessions where the Sangha practiced prostrations or did some sort of practice?
Yeah, we were doing this on Saturday afternoons.
Harry, did you ever get your book, the red Pesha we're working with? I thought you were going to come by and pick it up.
No, I didn't get down there, but I need to call you. Are you down there pretty much most of the time?
Yes, and you've got my number, but I've got it ready for you.
Okay, well, we'll get down there. We've been pretty much cloistered.
Well, you can leave it outside on the railing for you or something.
I think it'll be all right at this point with a mask. We've just been very, very conservative about it because so many people around us are not.
Well, maybe you don't want to continue this. That's fine. You're sitting in this, and that's great that you're doing that. But
No, I want to
maybe you
continue.
don't need it because you're not going to do the practice. So there's no point. So whatever you want to do,
I'll pick up the book.
it's up to you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we get to the next point here. It's on 21, the bottom of page 20 and the middle bottom of page 21 is the Mala blessings. So here's the Mala. So I presume everybody has a Mala. And you hold the Mala in your right hand and you hold it by the Guru bead. Everybody knows the Guru bead, I presume. If you have any questions, speak right up. And then you take the Mala, you put it in the palm of your left hand and you wind it in a clockwise fashion in the palm of your hand. And then you take the Guru bead and it should be standing up like that. And then you take your right hand and you put the Guru bead in between your index finger and your middle finger like that. And you're holding it horizontal like this at your heart center like this, at your heart level like this. And now we're doing a blessing for the beads. So if we were in the shrine room and we were in a practice with the lamas, if we were doing something, we would come by and we would take the bumpa and we would take some of the blessing water, the saffron, the amrita, and we would put a couple drops on everybody's mala beads. And if you want, you could do that yourself. You could have a little bit of water nearby in a nice glass or something like that. And you have this water and you just take a couple drops and you put it on here and you're holding this as a blessing. You're visualizing this as a blessing for the mala, because the mala represents your method, your skillful means. Counting your recitations, your accumulations are done on the mala. So it's an integral part of your practice and represents that method. So then we recite, as we do that now we recite this first mantra, which says, Om Ruchi Ramana Prarataya Hong Pe. So we're saying this 7 times. Om Ruchi Ramana Prarataya Hong Pe. 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 And the meaning of that on page 21 is the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the precious Dharma protectors, whose mirror-like wisdom is the door to purification. This is so powerful. Om is the body, speech, and mind of the precious Dharma protectors. That's what Om means in this case. Om Ahong represents the body, speech, and mind of the enlightened ones. So here, all that is consolidated into just the Om. Om. Then Ratsi Ramani is Prarataya Hong Pe, means whose mirror-like wisdom. So this mirror-like wisdom means the all-pervading wisdom, the mirror-like wisdom, the wisdom of discriminating awareness, discriminating awareness, the wisdom of all-accomplishing wisdom, and the wisdom of equanimity. So this, whose mirror-like wisdom is the door to purification. So this represents the 5 Buddha families. So as we are using the mala beads during all these practices, this is what we are doing. We are we're cultivating these 5 wisdoms for purification, for perfection, so that we may recognize ourselves as those Buddhas. We're purifying ourselves to become those Buddhas, to be able to act like those Buddhas, to have that enlightened activity and so on. So this is the meaning of the Mala. This is the means by which we accumulate this. This is an integral part of the practice. So we're blessing this, that this mirror-like wisdom is the door to purification. Without this technique, we wouldn't be able to achieve this. We would not have the technique. We would not have the skill to be able to do this. This gives us the ability to be able to do this. Does this make sense to you? It's very practical. It's so practical. That's what I love about this. It's so practical. Everything has been considered. So then we do that. So now we're accumulating this, we're opening this door to purification. And then the next mantra is Om Ri Padma Nirtishvari Hum. And we recite that 7 times. Om Ri Padma Nirtishvari Hum. 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 And the translation for this is, the body, speech, and mind of pure love is ultimate wisdom. The body, speech, and mind of pure love is ultimate wisdom. And then I always say, and the ultimate wisdom is pure love, to show that that it is a linear equation. Pure love is ultimate wisdom is pure love. So there's no questioning what that means. But that is only a conceptual idea to be able to take us to a place that is non-conceptual, to Vajradhara, to that true nature that is within ourselves. So, Om Padma Nirtishvari Hum, the body, speech, and mind of pure love is the ultimate nature. The body, speech, and mind here talking about the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. The 3 bodies of the Buddha, the 3 bodies of the enlightened ones, is pure love, is ultimate wisdom. So we're making these connections. And then we do that. Now we have this visualization. We do that 7 times. And now we open up and then, we animate this accumulation, and we blow on the beads with our breath. And it's animating that which is inanimate or appears to be inanimate, but it's vibrating like crazy. And now it's vibrating even more with the ritual, with the mantras that we just recited. It's been charged. And now we recite Om Ahum a mile around, or at least a mile around. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. And we know what the meaning of Om Ahum is. Om Ahum is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the body, the speech, and mind, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, the Nirmanakaya. Om Ahum, may my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. So we're preparing ourselves for everything that comes next in the practice. So we're purified. We purified our surroundings. We purify what's going within ourselves and so on. So now we've got this one-pointed mindfulness, and whatever noise we brought into the beginning of this practice now should be long gone. So now we come to page 22. In 22, we see these three images of, in the center is Lord Jigden Sumgun, the father, the founder of the Drikung Kagyu lineage. And he's said to be he's said to be, an emanation of the Buddha, an emanation of Shenrezig, an emanation of Nagarjuna, an emanation of Vajradhara. All these magnificent beings are all part and parcel of Lord Jigden Sumgun. And then to his right is Buddha Shakyamuni. And then to his left is Vajradhara, the primordial Buddha. So it's like Vajradhara represents the Dharmakaya. And Shakyamuni represents the Sambhogakaya. And Jigden Sumgun represents the Nirmanakaya.
By the way, when we were, I got curious about the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva that I had, and I ended up reading about it. As you know, there's the Bodhisattva, but there's also the primordial Buddha, Samantabhadra. And it kind of depends on the Tibetan lineage, whether they focus on Vajradhara or Samantabhadra, but they both represent the primordial Buddha.
Yes, true. Okay. So all right, so we're not going to get much further than this. Does anybody need to have a demonstration of the prostrations? Does everybody understand the prostrations before I don't want to lose that.
Could you please repeat the prayer slowly that we say when we do prostrations?
Well, jumping ahead, the prayer that we say is the long refuge practice, is the long refuge mantra. The long refuge practice, it's in the book.
When we just did, it's not the one in the red booklet, it's in the one in.
It's in both books. It's in both books.
Okay.
It's in both books. So that's what we recite as we're doing the prostrations, but we're counting the prostrations and not the recitations of the mantra. So, well, let's do one
Did you
more
say
thing.
you would demonstrate a prostration? Is that what you said you would do?
Yeah, I wanted to do that. I don't know if I can do it real good with a camera, but let me try. Sorry. Got my wires tangled up here. All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Let's see, maybe if I use this will work. What can you see? All right, so the first part is, I'm going to get down on my knees for right now. So we go Om, Ahom, from the body, speech, and mind, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. So we do this one time, okay? And then, now we stretch out on the floor, so we do a full body. So if you can see this, so you're standing, and you go Om, Ahom, sorry. You go Om, Ahom, and then you come down with both hands onto the floor and both knees onto the floor. And then you stretch your hands, you slide your hands out onto the floor. I don't know if you can see this. You slide your hands out in front of you, and now you become completely lying on the floor, your hands out in front, and your forehead touches the ground. This is called the 5-point full body prostration. So you slide your hands out, you touch your forehead to the ground, and then you're bringing in the blessings. You're bringing in the blessings by bringing your hands up over your head while you're stretched out on the floor.
Each time.
Yeah, so you're coming back and you're bringing the blessings into the crown of your head. And you're doing this in front of the altar, in front of the lineage tree, the picture of the lineage tree. So then you do this, and then you stand up. You come back and you stand up, and then you come and you stand back up, and you repeat it. Om Ahom. You're reciting the mantra at the same time. So
So you stand up each time.
each time. So there's a meaning to each part of the prostration. And we're going to get to the meaning of that in a few weeks. But first, we got to get this other stuff done. And then we'll get to the individual, what the meaning of standing is, what the meaning of the right hand is, the meaning of the left hand, and so on. All that has a meaning. And very powerful. And you're reciting, Tristan Sawa, Dangro Parje, PayPal, Dan Lama, Dampa, Namla, Kapsu Chio, Yudam Kilgorgi, La Sok Namla, Kapsu Chio, Sange Jom Dende Namla, Kapsu Chio, Dam Pedro Namla, Kapsu Chio, Pepege Do Namla, Kapsu Chio, Pa Woka, Jojo, Gomeshung, Yeshe, Dijang, Dangamba, Namla, Kapsu Chio. Now, that's a full body prostration. Now, some of us can't do that. So we can do just a 5-point prostration where you Om Ahong, and you come down and your both knees are on the ground and both hands are on the ground, just like this. You can see me. And then you take your forehead and you bring your forehead down in between your two hands. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you come back and you stand up and you do Om Ahom. And then you go back down and you do it again. And that becomes your prostration. So each one of those is a prostration, and that's a simple prostration. And usually when we're in the shrine room and there's not a lot of space and there's 50 people in the shrine room, and when the Lama comes in, we all do 3 prostrations to the Lama. And so we would do an abbreviated prostration like that, a 5-point prostration like that. It's just as I just said. Okay? Could you see that? You understand that?
Yes.
All right. Then the third kind is if we can't even do that, there's not enough room, or we are incapacitated for one reason or another, then we can simply either come to our knees and do Om Ahom and put our hands down, or we can be standing and just bend at the waist a little bit and Om Ahom and like that, Om Ahom, and just bending like that as a prostration. So those are the 3 basic ways I know to do prostrations. Does anybody else have a suggestion? Anybody else have another technique that you want to discuss?
Oh, that there are enough different opportunities there.
All right. So we'll talk much more about that when we get to it, but I just wanted to let you see that. So William right now, he was just doing something that was like a prostration. It's a gesture, and you do the best you can, and you accumulate as many as you can in a session, and but it grows, because whatever we think we can do, if we do that over time, it's going to increase. If we can only do 10 or 5, then the next time maybe we do 6, and we find that it grows. So for those of us who have the wherewithal to do 100, 200, 300, 400 in a session is not unusual. But,
Lance, question.
yes.
When you're doing the prostration at the And do you turn your hands palm up? I know in the Vietnamese temple they do.
I don't know.
Okay.
No, what you mean when you put your hands down on the ground, or you
Turn
mean like this, like an
turn
offering,
things.
like
Yeah.
an offering? No, there's many cultural differences, but they're
Uh-huh.
cultural differences.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can integrate if you've got a particular way you want to do a ritual like that. It's fine. It's your practice. You can do those kinds of things.
Okay.
So it's important to do it in front of the image, and we're going to get to that next time. We're not have enough time to talk about that tonight. But if you want a copy of that, I'll send you that. And so I think that's it for tonight. I think if there's any other questions, any other comments?
Just one brief question before I get to closing. I've been working tonight for material you sent me that I assume was part of the book. The Preliminary Foundation Awakenings. You sent me.
Oh, you got that?
Yes.
Oh, you got it. Okay, let me see the cover.
Card, and I've got it kind of pulled apart now. But
Oh, so I sent it to you at some time.
yeah, it was some time ago. Yeah, I've been looking through it before.
Oh, has it got 44 pages?
Yes.
No, well then that's the text.
Do I not need the book then? Is that what you're?
Well, that's what the book is. It says on the cover, it says the preliminary practices of the incomparable Drikung Kagyu.
Yes.
Well, then you got the book. Sounds like you got it. You've been following with us that we've been doing?
Yes, tonight. I've been.
Okay, well then you got it. Okay, then great.
You haven't missed
I'm
anything, Mary.
sorry if I sounded a little confused. I knew there was another book.
Oh, this is the one.
I've got my son assigned to order the jewel ornament of liberation, but I haven't got it yet. But what?
I think maybe if you want to re-explain what a pecha is and a book is, and
Oh, okay. Sorry, yes. The Pecha, this style book is called a Pecha, P-E-C-H-A.
Well, then I have it.
And it is a traditional Tibetan book. It's all loose pages. They didn't have a way to bind things together.
Yeah, I see. I'm sorry I didn't understand.
Well, no, my fault for not making it clear.
Yeah, I knew I was reading along with you, but I said something. I'm missing something here.
No, this is the book.
Okay. Well, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Shankar, you had something?
Yeah, Lance, is there a specific direction that you do your prostrations, and is there a special place that your altar is supposed to be, and what else am I missing?
Well, the placement of the altar, there's all kinds of feng shui, ways of doing things. You at least imagine that the altar is in the east and that you are facing the east, that you are facing the altar. So regardless of where it is in your room, you imagine that it is the east. Okay? So if you can put it in the east, that's great, but it may not be practical. Then if you've got the image of the lineage tree, then that should be on the altar at a place where you can see it easily while you're doing this practice, while you're doing your prostrations and so on, and all these practices, because it's you're paying respect, you're paying refuge to the lineage tree. So it should be in your sight, in your line of sight. So we're going to get to the meaning of that soon. So that's what should be there. So if you had your altar, then maybe, in line of sight, maybe on top of the altar, maybe below the altar would be this image. Okay.
So our altar is what it is.
Was there another Bhavani, did you have something else about that?
No, I was trying to figure out what direction the altar we have set up in our meditation room is, but we got it.
Well, the important thing is that you visualize that it's in the east, even if it's not in the east.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good. Yes.
You
So
know,
Lance, so if you don't have enough room to do any of that stuff, is it just as good to do a really strong, stable visualization of prostrations?
well, that's what you can do. Yeah. But, remember, this is based on hardship.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just kidding.
Hey, you're not in a straitjacket, Michael.
I did some of these Saturdays. I think I got myself up to 55 before dying.
Good.
So, yeah.
Well, it'll take a while to start over again, and hopefully we can get back to the shrine room in a few months and get back to it. Be great.
That'd be great.
Yeah, but whatever you can do, and it no pain, no gain. You know what they say. So if you're having to stretch yourself, to do things and everything, you're making a commitment, and that commitment comes back to you in a way of merit.
There was a book, Lance, that was titled The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there's cliff notes on all of this.
I'll pick that one up, Curtis.
And actually, to put that in a little bit of perspective, there's 3 Ngondro practices, the 3 levels of the Ngondro practices that I'm familiar with. There's one that is actually done in the 3-year retreat. Then there's one that is an intermediate level that has a lot of the imagery and so on in the 3-year retreat, but it's a little bit streamlined. And then there's another one that is like on 5 pieces of paper that is very streamlined, very basic, very essence. So what we are doing here is the middle one, the intermediate one. And what I would like to do is, if at some point, if everybody wants to, when the time is right, when you have made a good effort at this and you've got a stable practice with this, is then introduce you to the higher level one, the one that's done in 3-year retreat, and the jump to it will be very easy for you. And also at the same time to introduce you to the lower, simpler one. So you are familiar with that. There may be a time that might be practical for you, but I didn't want to start off with that and then have everything ahead of you. I thought starting at this middle level would be the best place to start. Okay. So if there's no other questions, we can do our dedications, and we will continue this next week. If you would like an image, I can either email you the PDF, or I can print a copy for you. Here at my house, the biggest I can print is 11 by 17. And I can put that into an envelope and mail it to you. If you want a bigger one, you can get a big poster size. You'd have to take it to a printer to get that done. So
Could you send the PDF to our 201 WeChat or whatever it is?
I can do that. Yes.
That'd be great.
Good idea.
I can do that. And if anybody wants me to snail mail, print it and snail mail it, I'll be glad to do it. All right. So let's get our practice books and do our dedication. So the Umze tonight is Gary. So if you will, on page 18, do page 18, 19, and 20 for us, please.
Dorje Chang, Tilopa, Naropa,
Marpa,
Milarepa, Dharma, Lord Kampopa, Ogmo Drupa, and Lord Drikumpa, please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline. but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samattabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the three times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikungpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient Lord of the Dharma, Master of Interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root.
That's okay for tonight. Thank you. Om, ah, hum. Om, ah, hum. Om, ah, hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thank you all.
Thank you.